So welcome, everybody. Sam, can you give me a thumbs up that you can hear me? Awesome. Appreciate everybody taking some time out of their day and joining us for this pre-registration webinar focused on the NYLF medicine program brought to you by Envision by World Strides. I am Dr. Jan Sikorsky. I'm the Vice President of Education for Envision by World Strides, and I also head up the innovation team specifically focused on the K-12 division at World Strides. I've worked in this business in experiential education for 19 years, coming up on my anniversary in September. So I've seen a lot of these summers come and go, and I've had the pleasure of building programs and hosting probably 300,000 students, maybe a little bit more in my tenure. What's really exciting for me tonight is I used to be the direct line manager for the NYLF medicine program about 10 years ago. And I'm excited to share with you what we've done to build up the program, both pre-COVID, but more specifically, what we're doing here post-COVID. My background is not in education. Why this is very exciting for me is I have a doctorate in biomedical science and a master's degree in forensic science. So at one point, I had aspirations of being a forensic pathologist. So medicine is near and dear to me as a career pathway. And so we'll talk at various points through the short presentation about some of what we've done and really where I get very excited about this experiential immersion educational model that Envision has really established and kind of perfected over the course of the last, probably 3 decades. On the call with me, Sam, if you can introduce yourself as one of our lovely customer service and admissions representatives, but I'll let Sam introduce herself because she'll be supporting the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Welly. I've been working as an admission advisor for about 4 years now. My degree is actually in law. I go to law school, just graduated. I've been working for this program. I've been doing a couple of summer programs as well. I've done the medicine program at St. John University and also some of the law program as well. So I'm here to support you with any question you may have and assist Mr. Jen with this presentation today.
Thanks, Sam. And a couple of points, blocking and tackling. There's a Q&A function on the Zoom call. We'll be actively monitoring and responding to those questions that come in. Sam has instructions to interrupt me. I tend to go off script a little bit, but she'll be interrupting me with some of the questions that are coming in that are multiple questions, so we can kind of stop the presentation and address them during that point. Hopefully, we'll spend about 20 minutes going through some of the detail, answering, and then we'll have some time at the end also for questions that we don't address during the presentation. As you can see on the screen, so the NYLF medicine program takes place across the nation. You can see the 9 different locations that we have programs in this coming summer. We'll cover some of the dates in one of the last slides before we go specifically into the question and answer. But as you can see, we kind of go run the gamut, coast to coast, east, middle, and west at some of the more prominent, as you'll see in a few slides, institutions across the United States. Oh, I'm stuck again. Trying to advance the slide. It all goes well until you get into presentation mode. There we go. So just a little roadmap on what we're going to cover today. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on the next slide because I think it's very important that you all understand who we are as an organization and what we do. Spend a little bit of time talking about our students and giving you a couple of reasons why I think that's so important to call out in a presentation like this. the punchline of the third part of the presentation is, if we don't keep the students safe, nothing else matters. So we're going to talk through, a little bit about our staff supervision and and our 24-hour care for students while they're on programs. We'll then shift gears and we'll go into some of the program highlights. I'm not going to go through a by day look at the schedule, because that would be wasting your time. It's a 9-day schedule, and to try to pack all that into 20 minutes wouldn't do it justice. But we'll hit call it 6 of the highlights that are in the program, and talk through some of the context as to why we've built it the way we have. And then lastly, we'll talk about a little bit of the summer fun. It's not all about 100% classroom time. Part of these immersion student programs, you need to kind of allow your student to let their hair down in the summer, and we certainly are respectful of that. And then, like I said at the beginning, we'll have some time for Q&A at the very end. So who we are, as I introduced, we are Envision by World Strides. Envision was acquired by World Strides as a parent company in late 2018. Envision's been around since about 1985. So on our own, what is that? Almost 40 years worth of leadership and call it career readiness programming. But World Strides, is a much larger organization serving about 500,000 student travelers annually. And World Strides chose Envision deliberately for our skill sets. I say our because I came to World Strides through the Envision acquisition. Through our skill sets in traveling safely, upwards of 25,000 individual travelers annually, which was a skill set that World Strides Group Travel hadn't quite built on their own. So when they did pull World Strides in, or Envision in rather, not only did they get the competencies in the individual travel, they brought with it all of our intellectual property and programming across our various career disciplines, in law, in business, in engineering, in game and technology, and then specific to our conversation today, our flagship, the NYLF medicine program. Like I said, one of the first ones to take place at Envision. I think it dates back to somewhere around 1992 in its origins, and has really done well to serve students since that point, and help them make call it informed decisions on their career trajectories. As I tell most parents, these short immersion programs are really designed to give students a jumping off point, a good platform where they can see themselves in the shoes of the providers, and then make informed decisions as to whether or not that's a career area for them. I think it's every bit, and again, having been in the business now almost 2 decades, it's every bit as important if you take a student and give them a realistic view of a career area, and they say, maybe that isn't the right field for me, as it is if they look at it and they say, I absolutely solidified my passion for insert whatever career field. I now know what I need to do to become a successful provider in those areas and find a meaningful career. I mentioned in my bio, I have a background in biomedical science, I have a background in forensic science, but I found that my passion was inspiring students to figure out what career pathways they were on. And I had the privilege of being an in resident faculty for our CSI program in 2005, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I spent 10 days on site in the program, doing all of the teachings with the students, and then turned around and basically applied to be an academic director at one of our predecessor organizations, because it had such a profound impact on me, and I could see the impact on the student. You see on your screen what we do. I introduced kind of briefly who we are. You can see what we do, and I use my verbiage very deliberately there: engage, equip, inspire, and transform. Those that are around me a lot, I have a phrase, relevance breeds engagement. Engagement leads to inspiration, and inspiration results in transformation. And I say that based on experience, because when I put when I go to programs in the throughout the summer, I don't know why it surprises me every year, but it does, how quickly students take to this environment of being immersed in their educational surrounding, how quickly they engage with the individuals they meet, and how transformational these programs are for the students. I've had many a conversation with parents where they ask, what do you do on program? Because I've never seen my son or daughter when they get home as now engaged with their lives as they are after they leave your one of your programs. And I don't think it's rocket science. We treat the students with respect, but we really give them content that they feel is relevant. The idea of giving them an application before they learn some of the theory is very important. They see the outputs, it becomes real to them. And so then what they can do is take ownership to study the stepping stones that are necessary for them to understand how to get to the pinnacle of whatever career area that they're in. So when you look at that model and try to replicate it, it's easy. It's not easy to do, but it can be done when we go across the various sites that we run in the medicine program, and we'll talk again about some of the specifics in a few moments. When I look at one of the last things I'll say here is I looked at these slides earlier in the day, and I was thinking about like, what are my top 3 takeaways in our career programming and specific to the medicine programming. And I think the first one is, and I've kind of already mentioned it, we give these students a realistic view of a career discipline, in this case, health and medicine. And we give them, kind of access to individuals that can talk about the career pathway. What did it take in terms of studying, training, and then ultimately, what's it like to be within that career area as a practicing professional? So it gives them that realistic view that then becomes real, it becomes relevant to them. The second point is we give them confidence to make decisions about their own future. I have some younger kids. My daughter's 8, my son's turning 13. So they're just coming into what I would consider Envision's wheelhouse for our career content. But it never ceases to amaze me how confident they become after they have an experience. So it's whether it's the first time my son rode a bike to middle school and then came back, and now that fear factor is gone. We do that with students in these programs. We give them that supervised environment that's safe for them to start exploring, their career passions. But also, my last point, they get to explore themselves. They get a better recognition after 9 days on this program of who they are, because this may be the first time they're traveling on their own. This may be the first time that they're staying in a communal setting with individuals that they've never met before. All of those are boxes that they can check, and all of those are slight confidence builders for them that really can help advance who they are as individuals. So, that kind of leads me to the next point that I introduced is, who are the students that attend these programs? So we have students from all 50 states. We will likely have 2-3 dozen countries internationally represented, depending on the program location. So definitely students from all across the United States and really global. And I say that because the perspectives that our students gain on program are not just from call it their either facilitators, their advisors, or the speakers, the professional participants. Is also from individuals like them that they meet from all across the country and across the world, that they now find out that, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not the person, I'm not the only person that has, this level of passion for medicine. And one of the biggest takeaways that students often say, and this happens every summer, like, what did you get out of the program? I met my best friend. I met individuals that are just like me. And I don't mean, looks like them, talks like them. It's like that shares their views, that shares their passion for their career and life development. And that makes me smile because one of the things I said, I'll go off script a little bit. One of the things that people ask me all the time, parents and whether it's friends, but more so individuals, parents that are canvassing me about our programs. This is Jan, you were in college a long time, and yes, that's true. I spent a lot of money in college. What made you successful? And I reflected on that quite a bit. One of the things that I feel, I was never the smartest kid. I might have been the most stubborn. I might have been, I certainly wasn't the most motivated at certain points. What made me successful? Well, one of the things was I surrounded myself with individuals that are highly successful. And I look to some of my closest friends. I went to Michigan State for my undergraduate. I look at some of my closest friends from my undergraduate years, and I say, what are they doing now? One of them's the national sales manager for the Marine Division at Wells Fargo. One of them's the CFO at Purdue University. These are my roommates in college. And these are individuals that I gravitated toward to help me be successful. They were the ones that were dragging me out to the library on Thursday night. So we had 3 hours worth of study session instead of, going to play intramural sports or doing whatever. Had enough time for that, but it was all about getting the job done. And I bring it around to our students at Envision programs. These are the highly motivated. These are the highly talented. These are the highly, passionate students about their career areas. These are the students I want my kids to have in their inner circle, to have in their support system. So when they go to college or whatever their choice is, post secondary, they have that support element that's going to help them and motivate them and drag them along when needed. So they are successful at getting through. It's not just colleges. This is another interesting aside. I always get asked the question, what do we need to do to get into to the best school? What do we need to do to get into the best medical school? And my answer is, you don't want to just get in, you want to get through. So the question you should be asking is not just what credentials do I need to get in? It's what skills do I need to get through? And one of those skills is highlighted here with the types of individuals, the diverse and passionate and driven individuals that you surround yourself with. And they'll find them here at our Envision by World Strides programs. So I also mentioned it all doesn't matter if we can't keep the students safe. The number one priority that we have on program is student safety. And I don't just mean physical safety, I also mean providing a mental environment where individuals feel welcome, where they feel that they can express themselves in a risk-free, retribution-free environment. Our staff are trained highly to manage our programs and ensure that this is a safe space for all students. And I also feel that when I was mentioning before, like, why do students gravitate and why do they engage in our environment so deeply? Some of it is exactly this. The staff are so welcoming. We hire the right people. The environment is so accommodating. That the student comes in and there are no barriers. There's no there's no preconceived notion on who they are. They can be whoever they want to be, and often that allows them to blossom as individuals. You can see on the screen, we stay in the dorms, we eat in the dining halls. I think this is one of the most undersold components of our call it our college readiness, the college readiness aspects of Envision by World Strides programs. I even stay in the dorms when I travel to programs because it takes me back to the environment where I get to be on a college campus. I get to walk the halls of academia, and there's just something special about that. And to have a student, whether they're a rising ninth grader or whether they're a graduated senior, allowing them that experience in a supervised fashion again, gets back to the comment I made a few minutes ago. It checks a box for them where they now feel confident when they do it on their own. When it's their turn as a freshman, if college or university is in their future, it's not going to be the first time when they have that experience when they walk on campus. So that's pretty important. Our staff, our programs are staffed 24 hours a day. We have a site office on campus. We have night security for the students. We work on about a 1-to-10 staff to student ratio. That doesn't mean instructional ratio. That means we have inclusive of our instructors that are on program, as well as our support team. It ends up coming down to about a 1-to-10. So there are plenty of staff for students to take care of any needs those students have while they're on program at any point during the day. And they'll go through an orientation when they get to campus. They'll get access to the site office contact information. You will have access to the site office contact information as a parent. So there are ways of getting a hold of individuals at any of our sites at any point during the day, and vice versa. They're on. So if a student has an health issue in the middle of the night, we have protocols in place for them to contact parents and likely take that student to urgent care to get them checked out. Now call it the exciting part of the presentation, the program highlights. And the part that I hate about program highlights is I think it undersells the total experience, because the uniqueness of our program model is not any one component. The uniqueness of our program model is the combination of all of them, including the staff. I think our staff are the special sauce that kind of brings the burger together. If we don't have them, that near age mentor. I mean, it's one thing that if somebody like me stands on stage and talks about their 12 years in college or their professional career or whatever, it's another thing to have a recent college graduate in the career field that these students are looking to get into, where they can look at that person and say, wow, I'm not too many years away from sitting in that person's seat. I can really relate to that individual as well as how they got where they are. So that's why I say, like, we're going to talk about 6 of the program highlights, but realize these are just kind of, call it the anchor moments within the schedule. Like, there's plenty of other content that fills in around these that I think really make up the dynamic of the program model. So the first item that I'll key on is the medical school visit. And I'm not going to talk specifically about any site. Sam has, I think, a current list of some of the schools that we've contracted for this year. But I really want to talk to you
Just
about—
a quick question, Jen, sorry for interrupting you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Since we're already in the subject of career, there's actually one great question on here. I believe Adenia DeVries would like to know if there will be any different medical career discussed during the program or explored during the medical program.
So let me rephrase that. So I think the question is, will there be any specific medical careers discussed during the program?
Like
I think,
explore different, like a different medical field
yes.
of
And so
medicine.
the answer is absolutely. And I think you'll see I think it's on the next slide where we'll talk about, some of the speaking events. We bring in professionals from the career field to talk about their specialty, and so whether that's a physician, a nurse, a different healthcare, they're all built into each of the schedules deliberately, so students can understand. I think call it healthcare as a career cluster, but also dive into some of the specifics of kind of more of the deep in the weeds career tracks. So yes to that question. Hopefully, I answered it in a reasonable manner. It also leads into the medical school visit, because one of the things that in each of these visits, we try to arrange talkbacks with medical students, with faculty who are likely practicing physicians So that leads to the academic development and training that are necessary to get into those career fields, but also gives the students the ability to ask, kind of that probing question or two to those individuals on how they got where they are, and what they encounter while practicing within these fields. We also talk about medical school admissions. I know I mentioned, what's it take to get in. So part of that admissions discussion is not just about, what MCAT score for the schools that still take it, what MCAT score do I need, or, what question I get asked a lot is, what's the best undergraduate major that I can study in order to get into medical school? And believe it or not, I'm sure somebody has statistics that there is one that's better than another, but there are schools now that are accepting individuals from humanities backgrounds. In fact, look at Icahn School of Medicine in New York. I think they were one of the first, and I think they have probably the largest, if I'm not mistaken, and my stats might be a little bit dated, but they had 25% of their entire incoming freshman class that was earmarked for non-science majors, because in their thinking, the better practicing physician is actually a humanitarian. We can teach them the basic science at the beginning of their tenure with us, and they're going to be a better practicing physician at the back end because they have that more patient awareness than somebody like maybe me, who went through hard sciences their entire career and is very, very data oriented, but not necessarily oriented on the people side. So that's the kind of thing when we take students to a medical school that they can experience. There's also, we shoot for hands-on elements. So part of that visit, in addition to the talkbacks, in addition to walking the halls of the medical school, they'll have stations set up where they can participate in some of the clinical skills trainings that the medical students do. And again, those differ by school, but I hope this gives you at least a perspective on what we do to build these and work with the medical schools on a really engaging day at. Most of them are half day, if not a full day visit that those students get exposed to. One of the things that, as part of my tenure in owning this program, that we added simulation center visits to each of the program sites deliberately, because we market the program as being hands-on. I prefer the term immersive because hands-on means different things to different people. Coming from the science background, hands-on to me is, I'm in a laboratory, getting my hands dirty with experimentation. That's what these simulation center visits represent. It's almost 100% of hands-on activities for the students to learn clinical skills, to really experience what practitioners in the field are doing to either learn the skill or keep their current skills up to date with whatever protocols are in place. We work with the simulation centers that are local to each of our program sites and build out very deliberate day-ats. And so this is probably one of the things I'm most proud of adding to the program personally, but I also think it's one of the days that the students get the most out of in terms of that, that engagement, that interaction. So that's definitely a highlight that's fairly difficult to replicate in this environment. Let's see if I can move on. I'm stuck again. There we go. I mentioned the speaking events. So, the format of these changes, sometimes they're panel discussions, keynote presentations, what I call kind of like a desk side briefing, where it's more of a small group evening with the experts type event that, picture speed dating where you have 9 different stations set up and the students can discuss with each individual. So it depends on access to individual, but also the specific sites on the delivery format, but the content is the same. This goes back to the point that I think we had in our Q&A. What career disciplines are you going to be discussing? These are the formats where those individuals that we're recruiting in, physicians, nurses, practitioners, radiation technologists, this is the area where they're able to convey to the student, a realistic view of what they're doing as a in their specific field. I also mentioned, kind of this idea of getting students in their learning environment, and one of the ways we do that is through the events like the disaster triage simulation. So disaster triage has been around for a long time. In this particular program, we actually worked with the Texas A&M Health Sciences Center to build out this content, and the goal was we want an activity that's going to engage students in a real life medical scenario, but we also want them to start understanding what it's like to have to make decisions that individuals in the fields make, and use those words very deliberately. If you can imagine a disaster triage where you're having to decide which patients go to which level of care, that's a powerful feeling for a student to be placed into that for the first time. And and it's allowing them to kind of just get a sense of the types of decisions that healthcare providers need to make on a sometimes a daily basis. Now, this is kind of at the most heightened of events, but we live in a day and a time where natural and man-made disasters. I mean, just look at the news. Whether it's to find out, these are very real, and our medical providers are in these scenarios on a daily basis, if you look at the United States on a macro national level. And so getting these students exposed that this is what you will have to manage at some point in your career, if this is a career discipline you want to choose, which is why we felt very strongly at adding it into the program. And it's a highlight for the students. And the last two that I'll introduce here, clinical skills. I've mentioned it in a couple of different manners, both at the medical school and also at the simulation center. But giving students the basic skill sets, whether that's learning how to suture, to taking vital signs. It might sound juvenile, but it gives them kind of that realistic feeling of being in that health and medical environment. And it allows them, I think this is one of the items that I think takes place fairly early in the program schedule, because it pulls the student into that immersive educational experience. And it kind of says, yeah, this is something that I really want to learn more about, and I can take this skill with me and I can start practicing it, and I can be better at it as I go, if they haven't already learned it. One of the other areas that was an addition while I was working in this program, we had close connections with an individual by the name of Dr. Paul Auerbach. Dr. Auerbach was kind of a pioneer in wilderness medicine. He was an emergency medicine physician that was on faculty at Stanford's medical school. And Dr. Auerbach was a huge supporter of programs like ours, the immersive educational programs. And he and his colleagues built us a 6-station, I think it's now 5, experience where we set it up on the campus and allows students to rotate through real life wilderness scenarios. Say someone breaks an ankle, how do you secure that in a wilderness environment? 2 ways. Whether if you have a splint, great. If you don't, what can you use that you do have to secure that and help the individual find until you can help the individual find real medical care. So it is a very engaging half day's worth of rotation that we have in this program, and it's kind of founded on these principles of teaching individuals skills that whether they stay. And I think one of Dr. Auerbach's passions were, if I teach these individuals, whether they're staying in medicine or not, if I give them these skills, they can then help other individuals in society if they run across somebody, and they're more confident in helping individuals if they run across individuals that have been afflicted by some issue, auto accident. I mean, heck, just roll your ankle while you're while you're on a hike. So those are some of the program highlights. I said I wasn't going to take up a whole lot of your time, and on the East Coast, I know it's getting about dinner time for some of us. But the last thing that I want to cover before we turn it over to some of the questions that are in the chat. Not making this program 100% about medicine and healthcare, but also making this program about the student. It's summertime. We've found that if we get too academic with the students across the entire program schedule, that the program's not as fun, and the outcomes are not as great for the student. So we've really focused on ensuring there's out of classroom time, that we have trivia nights built in, we have socials that are built in, to really help them engage and network with these other students from around the country and around the world that have those same passions that they do. That doesn't happen if they're 100% focused on course content. And so we've kind of built these in as deliberate, like I said, some of the evening socials, some of the evening activities, but we've also built in deliberate out and about days or excursions within the communities. And you can see some of them that are listed up here. These are meant to give some of those out of town students that may be visiting, say, San Francisco, a taste of what it's like to be down on Fisherman's Wharf, or, if you're in New York City and you've never seen Times Square, some of the folks that are there, they don't ever go within 5 blocks of it, but it is something that is important if you're getting a flavor for the city that you're in, that you see some of these iconic locations. And so we've kind of deliberately retained them in our programs at points, again, for 2 reasons. Number one, gives the student a feel for the region they're in, but also gives them an ability to socialize with those other talented students that they're on program with. So I mentioned at the beginning the various locations that we're at this summer, and you can see them. I'm not going to read them top to bottom, but there's 9 different post-secondary institutions where the program is housed. You can see the dates that we're running the programs. We're kicking off next week at a couple of locations. We have a few more that have late June dates, and then we run all through the month of July. We are offering for those that had to endure me presenting at this webinar, our admissions team is ready to give you a $500 grant just for lasting this long. If you take a look at any of our June dates that are on the calendar here. I'll leave this up on the screen for a minute. I have one last closing slide that's just kind of shows you the diversity of our student audience, but I think you can see some of that on the screen here. I'll also point out before I open the floor or open it up for Sam to give me some of the questions. I always love if you can't see it, it says, "I now know." And one of the activities toward the end of the program is allow the students the ability to write these down. What are the things that you learned during program? And it's amazing the responses. And if you could blow up some of the, some of the ones that were here, I probably should have just put one up there, but I wanted to show the diversity of the student audience. It really is incredible that, you get everything from medical admissions to, I now know what it's like to be a provider, to I've never sutured before and now I know how. It's just gratifying as a de facto educator. I guess I have to call myself an educator after 20 years in the business. But it's just gratifying to see the types of learnings that the students get in a model like this that, they may not be getting in their normal, call it 9 to 5 schooling. Okay, I'll shut up until I'm asked a question. So Sam, you're up.
So we did have a few great questions that I already answered in the chat, but I will like for you to answer. I think this is a great question. What's the best advice you can give to a senior applying to colleges, life hack, admission advice, anything of that sort?
Wow, man, I think that is a fantastic question, and I could spend another 30 minutes answering it. I'm not gonna, but if I consolidate my response down to 2 I'm gonna answer it in two ways. Number one, you know, what's the best advice I can give them the best advice I can give them flat out is don't hyper focus on one school. If your goal is to get into colleges, plural, or universities, plural, it's more important. I found that it's more important to find the right fit than it is to get the right school in terms of like, hey, I had a vision that I was going to go to Michigan State since I was 5 years old. Okay, great. But if I don't learn well in a school of 45,000 students, where I think my organic chem class had, 750 students in the auditorium, if I'm not comfortable being a number, that would have been a huge mistake for me to go to school there. So in addition to, kind of figuring out the target, like figure out how, like match the target with how you learn as a student, because it's going to make you successful. Like I said before, it's not just about
Just to let
getting
you
in.
know, Jen, we have about 3 minutes left.
That's cool. It's about getting through. So I'll go ahead and ask another one.
So we have this one is a easy question. Will there be any sort of test at the end of the program to receive your certificate, or if there's one?
No, there are certificates and no tests. This is more of a competency, what I'll call a competency-based program. It's iterative in that the skills that you learn each day build upon one another. And it's not about having an assessment at the end of the course that that the tests knowledge. It's more about, can you complete the the activities.
All right, and the last one, the very last one is, does the program give hands-on experience or information about specific neuroscience, or neurology? Sorry.
It's a tough question to answer. Like I would have said yes. I'm a little distanced from the speakers that we have coming in this year. So to answer unequivocally, there will be neuroscience. I can't say for sure.
Just to also add to that, I know when they go on the hospital rounds, they do meet a lot of neurosurgeon as well. So that's also a good way to look at it. So they have that opportunity to not only meet different doctors, but different professionals that are already in the medical field, so they get to learn more from them directly.
We got time for one more, I know we're coming up on the end.
Is it beneficial for a freshman to go into a program, or is it better to wait?
I actually think that's the perfect time. I don't think that there's any one time that's better than others, other than the fact that it gives you the most runway to use the information. So if you go into the program as a freshman, it gives you almost 4 full years to figure out, how you're going to use the learnings from this program and what you can do next. So that to me is why I would certainly recommend it.
Okay, that was it.
Thank you, and I know we got to wrap up. I appreciate everybody's attention. Like I said, you can take a look at this this slide from one of our previous programs and just see yourself as a student standing on the steps here. To me, I love this photo because it really takes me to each of our program sites. So again, thanks for your time, and look forward to seeing some of you out on program this summer.
All right, and remember, we will go ahead and post all of your questions, and the video of the webinar will also be posted online as well. So we will make sure you have access to it on the students portal, or you can feel free to call the admission office. We will go ahead and send you the link to that so you can rewatch it again.
Take care, everybody.